Story 1. My recollection of this event is somewhat hazy, as I was quite young, perhaps around 7 years old. In our old house, my room occupied its own floor, although it wasn't originally intended as a bedroom but more of an annex to the attic or a closet-like space. The previous owners had utilized it as a playroom for their daughters. Additionally, my room featured a sizable closet door leading to the attic, which was accessed via a set of wooden stairs. This closet was filled to the brim with toys and other childhood paraphernalia. Given my tender age at the time, I often felt apprehensive about being isolated from the rest of the family, particularly with such a large closet in my room. One night, after watching a scary movie with my family, I was lying in bed when I heard a toy fall over in the closet. Startled, I rushed to my parents' room, convinced that someone was in the closet. Despite their reassurances, my fear persisted, and they allowed me to sleep in their room that night. The following night, I had almost forgotten about the incident until I heard the sound of Legos spilling out from the closet. Once again, I sought refuge in my parents' room, much to my dad's growing impatience. Eventually, upon inspection the next day, my mom and I discovered a pile of Legos spilled out on the closet floor, confirming my fears. I interpreted this as evidence of someone being in my closet, but my mom reassured me that it simply toppled over that night. Frustrated with my fears, my dad locked his door, expressing his exhaustion with my concerns. I spent that night unable to sleep, lying in silence with my young imagination racing, anticipating another sound from the closet. After about an hour, it happened. The closet door forcefully rolled open, breaking the silence. Bathed in moonlight, I saw a figure standing by my bed, prompting me to emit a piercing scream of terror that still resonates with me today. The figure leapt from the closet and fled from my room, darting out of the house through the front door. My mom rushed to my room in shock while my dad hurried downstairs in pursuit, but the intruder evaded capture, eluding the police's efforts to apprehend him. Story 2. During my 6th grade school trip, we visited various significant sites in South Carolina, including a plantation renowned for its reputation as one of the most haunted places in the country. While touring the plantation, our group found ourselves gathered in a room, listening to the tour guide speak about various historical aspects. Amidst the chatter, I began to hear what sounded like piano keys being struck. Perplexed, I searched for the source of the sound but found no piano in sight. When I mentioned it to my friends, they claimed they hadn't heard anything, casting doubt on my perception. However, one woman caught my attention and gestured towards her ear, indicating she too had heard the mysterious sound. As the tour guide recounted tales of a deceased soldier known to play the piano, I couldn't help but feel unsettled by the inexplicable experience. Even now, I remain unsure of what to make of it. As we exited the room, I conversed with the woman who confirmed that she had heard the same sound as me, although her husband and son had not noticed it. Story 3. Around Halloween time, my friends and I gathered to share ghost stories. One of my friends mentioned she had a story about her parents, admitting reluctance since it was based on actual events. Despite her initial hesitation, we encouraged her to proceed. According to her tale, her parents had an interesting but somewhat awkward first date, during which her friend's dad suggested a midnight hike up the mountains. He was familiar with the area due to his experience in rock climbing and knew some police officers. Driving to the mouth of a canyon, they embarked on their hike under the starlit sky, as it was a new moon. However, as they approached a dark pathway beneath the trees, the man started feeling uneasy, yet he pushed aside his concerns and continued. Moments later, his unease intensified as he sensed something amiss. Ignoring it once more, he proceeded into the trees, only to stumble upon something soft in the path, shrouded by darkness, intensifying his unease even further. Instead of investigating what his foot had inadvertently encountered, both he and the woman unanimously decided to swiftly depart from the area. Several years later, having been married for a while, they found themselves watching an interview with the notorious serial killer. During the interview, he recounted a moment when he felt closest to being apprehended. He described a chilling incident wherein he had lured a girl into the same mountains and had just committed a murder. Hearing people approaching along the trail, he hid in the trees just in time, witnessing a man walk directly past the victim's body without noticing, then inexplicably turning back and walking away. Story 4. The library at my school stays open until 2 a.m. for procrastinators like me who leave their essays until the 11th hour. It's a fairly compact building, with most of the books housed in the basement area known as the stacks. To give you a quick overview, there's a prominent staircase leading down to the stacks, a room with vending machines, and a long hallway with 4 entrances into the stacks. These stacks consist of 2 large rooms on opposite sides of the hallway, filled with numerous bookshelves and study desks along the walls. Last year, around 9 p.m., I found myself engrossed in a research-intensive essay down in the stacks, stationed at one of the study desks to minimize the back and forth trips upstairs and downstairs. I had been there for about an hour, with everyone else having already left except for a boy working a few desks down from me. By this point, I was deeply focused, feeling the pressure of an impending 8 a.m. class deadline looming over me, which added to my stress. So, you can imagine my irritation when I heard someone rapidly flipping through book pages. Initially, I tried to ignore it, hoping the noise would cease on its own, but after about 7 minutes of continuous flipping, I grew fed up and decided to confront the individual. However, as I took a few steps across the room, the sound abruptly ceased. I resumed my seat, and for a brief moment, the library fell silent again. However, after about 15 minutes, the sound of pages being flipped started up once more, only this time much louder, as if someone had picked up a large book. The boy nearby also became agitated and stood up, beginning to search through the bookshelves in an attempt to locate the source of the noise. Feeling equally frustrated, I joined him in the search. As the noise persisted and grew louder, it became increasingly evident where it was emanating from. The boy headed towards the sound on one side of the shelves, while I ventured to the other. We traversed the entire length of the shelves but found no one there. Perplexed, we realized that no one had entered the stacks, especially since we were situated near the entrances and would have noticed anyone coming in. With the noise ceasing once more, we slowly returned to our seats, attributing the disturbance to perhaps a malfunctioning fan in another room. Despite my urgent need to complete my essay, the noise resumed as soon as we sat down again. This time, it seemed to be coming from right beside the boy's chair. Without hesitation, he hastily packed his belongings, glanced at me, and swiftly departed. I followed suit, leaving the area mere seconds after him. Even now, I avoid going back into the stacks at night, even when there are others present. Story 5. This incident occurred during the time when I still owned my fishing boat, and it's an experience that has left an indelible mark on both my wife and me. We embarked on a 3-day fishing trip in the North Pacific, setting out from the East Coast. The initial day and night passed without incident, with a decent catch and enjoyable moments spent playing cards and listening to music. However, the tranquility of our journey was shattered on the following night. After a slow day at sea, we found ourselves once again engaged in a game of cards inside our boat. The absence of music made the atmosphere markedly different. It was at this juncture that we heard the distant hum of a boat motor. Hastily, we made our way outside to investigate, only to find a middle-aged man at the helm of a dilapidated motorboat, its lights conspicuously absent, positioned directly in front of our vessel. Approaching him, I inquired if he required assistance, to which he responded by asking if we had any spare gasoline. Regrettably, we didn't. Sensing his potential need, I offered him a ride back to shore, but he declined, asserting that he had an ample supply of fuel. This exchange left an awkward silence lingering between us, prompting my wife and me to question his motives for seeking gas. As the silence stretched on, a sense of unease began to envelop us, exacerbated by the man's unsettling stare, illuminated only by the deck light on our boat, amidst the encompassing darkness. The silence was eventually broken by the man, who inquired about our fishing haul for the day. Despite the eerie circumstances, I politely informed him that we hadn't caught much. Curious about how he navigated in the darkness, I asked him, but he merely chuckled in response, as if mistaking my question for a jest. With a brief farewell, he turned his motorboat around and vanished into the enveloping darkness, leaving my wife and me feeling thoroughly unsettled. My wife expressed her fear that he might have had sinister intentions, perhaps intending to rob us. As someone accustomed to engaging in conversations with fellow sailors and fishers, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss about the encounter. The lateness of the hour, his solitary presence in a small motorboat far from shore, and his peculiar behavior left us both deeply uncomfortable. To ensure our safety, I decided to extinguish our lights and alter our course northward, hoping to evade any further encounters with the mysterious stranger. However, in the dead of night, around 3 a.m, I was jolted awake by my wife's piercing scream. Startled, I leapt out of bed to confront a figure standing at the edge of our berth, but before I could react, He swiftly vanished from the cabin and sped away in his motorboat, disappearing into the darkness once more. Filled with apprehension, we immediately sailed back to shore and reported the incident, but nothing ever came of it. To this day, we remain haunted by unanswered questions about the man's intentions and actions, a chilling experience that continues to plague my dreams.